Today I'm going to be covering the top 4 pros and cons of Hudson Oaks, Texas, and we're going to be covering everything from taxes to shopping to wildlife to water bills. So stick around, let me know which one you think is most important, and let's get rolling. Now, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in the Aledo area, make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications to make sure you get kept up to date about everything that's going on in the Aledo market. My name's Jared with Living in Aledo, Texas, and I get calls and texts all the time from people just like yourself who are thinking about moving their family to the Aledo area, and I love it. So whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. Reach out however is most convenient, and I'm looking forward to helping you make a smooth move to the Aledo area. Okay, now I'm not even gonna make you wait to get the #1 pro of living in Hudson Oaks, and that is the tax rate. And the fact is that there is no city taxes on your property. So what's that gonna mean for you? Really, that's about the best way to think about it is it's almost a 0.4% decrease in your property taxes, which is almost a 20% decrease in your property taxes. So the best way to explain that is to compare Hudson Oaks and Willow Park. Now, Willow Park has like a normal tax rate, but let's talk about the difference. So in Willow Park, the city portion of your property taxes is about 0.39 and change. So I'm rounding this up to 0.4%. So if you're in the city of Willow Park and you're in Aledo ISD, your overall tax rate is going to be very close to 2.2%. And so I'm making that a nice round easy number to look at, about 2.2%. If you are in Hudson Oaks and also in Aledo ISD, your tax rate is going to be about 1.8%. So that is, again, 0.4% difference, which is almost a 20% savings in your property tax simply by being in Hudson Oaks over something like Willow Park or in the city of Aledo. And it is also basically the same tax rate you'd get if you lived outside city limits. So again, the #1 pro of living in Hudson Oaks is the fact that they do not charge property tax to the residents. Okay, so the #2 pro of the Hudson Oaks area is that they really have the largest commercial strip of anywhere between Fort Worth and Weatherford. So coming off 20, exiting 180, that's where you're gonna get all of the local shopping and grocery and restaurants. Honestly, that's where H-E-B is, and I've joked about it in other videos. That is like my favorite grocery store. There's a Chick-fil-A right around the corner. There's a Dairy Queen. There's a fair amount of like fast food selections to just get in and get out. They also have a pretty good number of actual restaurants, and so there's a bunch of stuff that's worth checking out. Again, Blue Jasmine is one of our favorite go-tos. It's just a pretty staple, good Thai food place. Lots of car dealerships. There's restaurants, there's fast food, there's boutiques. There's the big box stores like Walmart, AutoZone, all that kind of stuff. Another pro is that, and this is related to the lack of property taxes, is that the city is incentivized to make sure their businesses are doing well because the city runs on the sales tax. So really, if you live anywhere in the Aledo area, you are gonna be driving to this big commercial strip. That's where a lot of the options for whatever you need on a day-to-day basis is gonna be. Not really a negative that I'm gonna talk about in the video, but it doesn't have like high-end Louis Vuitton or Gucci, none of that stuff's over here. This is like your day-to-day stuff that you're gonna need. They have compounding pharmacy, which we like, a lot of shopping. Everything that you actually need on a day-to-day basis is gonna be right there, and it's gonna be in Hudson Oaks. And if you live anywhere in the area, it's probably where you're coming anyways. So if you live in the Hudson Oaks area, it's gonna be extra close. Okay, now pro #3 of living in Hudson Oaks is the value of the homes that you're getting. So the median price point, this is gonna be where the largest majority of the home values are, is just under $500,000. So in the last video, I mentioned it was exactly $495,000. So the majority of homes that you're gonna be able to look at are gonna be plus or minus $500,000, which is still a good chunk of change, but that's close to $150,000 to $200,000 less than the kind of the median or the average in the greater Aledo area, where that's like $650,000 to $700,000. Now on top of that, you're actually getting a lot more land than some of those other areas in those newer neighborhoods in the Aledo area, because the median lot size of homes sold that match that criteria is going to be about 0.8 acres, so a little over 3/4 of an acre. So a lot of the neighborhoods, especially the established ones, and we talked about Diamond Oaks, Enchanted Oaks, Hidden Oaks, all those, and again, it's funny, like they all have oak in the name, but almost all of those are gonna be a ½ acre plus on lot size. So if you're wanting a home and you want a little bit of space, you don't need like 3, 4, 5 acres, but you don't want a 0.14 acre lot. Hudson Oaks has a lot of neighborhoods that are gonna give you at least a little bit of like elbow room or breathing space between your neighbors. And then the last thing to say about the homes is that the biggest chunk of those homes were built in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So are some homes that go all the way back. They're built in like the 30s. Very few that are that old, but you have homes built in the 70s, 80s, a big chunk of them in the late 90s, around 2000. Then you do have some newer construction as recently as like the late teens. So still a good variety of homes, good value, good lot sizes. Pro number 4, I really think, is a hidden gem inside Hudson Oaks, and that is Gene Voiles Park. So that is the park that I mentioned in the last video, the map video of Hudson Oaks, that's next to City Hall. It's behind HEB, and that is a venue that the city uses to host live events, concerts, all sorts of really cool like community type events that honestly, you don't have to be a Hudson Oaks like citizen to go to. It's open to anybody. But it's a really cool thing that Hudson Oaks does. Particularly, our 2 favorite things is December during Christmas. They have like a holiday Christmas light show and event where they may have like a whole bunch of like lit arches kind of running around, not a maze, but kind of like snaking around. My in-laws frequently take our sons there. They love running around and seeing the lights in the dark. And then what I also mentioned in the last video was July 4th. So they do fireworks in the evening. They did live music this past year. They had a carnival, they had food trucks. So it's a great community like hangout spot when they're hosting events and doing things there. So Gene Voiles Park is a great spot. I wish they used it even more than they did, but it's a really cool thing when they have events there. Okay, now the most important con for you to be aware of, especially if you've been watching my channel for any time at all, is that the majority of Hudson Oaks does not feed into the Aledo schools. The majority of Hudson Oaks feeds into Weatherford. So if the schools are important to you, there are only like 3 neighborhoods really that feed into the Aledo area. So you need to make extra certain that you're looking in the right area, because if you're not working with someone like me or someone else who knows the area really well, there can be homes on the same street that feed into, one home might feed into Weatherford, one home might feed into Aledo, but they're on literally the same street in the same neighborhood. So that's gonna be the most important thing for you to know. And con number 1 is that not all of Hudson Oaks is in Aledo ISD. Okay, so the number 2 con is related to the water in Hudson Oaks. In a prior video on Willow Park, I did mention that Willow Park and Hudson Oaks came together to basically make a deal with the city of Fort Worth to help supply their residents with water. Now, the residents are not paying Fort Worth, they're paying the city of Hudson Oaks, but obviously there's some charges and some fees and some construction stuff had to happen for all this to go through. So the end result is that the water bills are going to be increasing in Hudson Oaks. So according to some documentation I have from the city's website, it does look like the water bill rate is going to increase about 13% next year in 2025, and then about 6% per year through 2029. So that's gonna be about a total increase in that water, the water portion of the utility bill, the freshwater portion, of over 38%. And then the wastewater, because they measure those differently, the wastewater is gonna go up about 43% next year in 2025. And then 13% in 2026. That being a grand total of about 56% increase in the wastewater portion of the utility bill. So what does that mean for your pocketbook? Because a 38+% increase and a 56+% increase sounds like a very large increase, and it is kind of concerning. So according to the city's website and the city's numbers, the average utility bill, as is about right now, is about $155. Now that includes the freshwater, the wastewater, trash, which is that's not what we're talking about increasing, kind of the set tap fee for that water meter, and then a couple of other minor charges. So if those other charges that are on that utility bill don't increase, and just the water and the wastewater increase, what does that mean for your $155 bill? That's gonna increase it to about $200 by 2029. So that's not an astronomical difference. It's about a $45 like actual dollar difference each month for the residents of Hudson Oaks. But on a percentage basis, it's still fairly large, close to around 30%. So it's not gonna be in 1 year. That's gonna be, a decent chunk of that's gonna happen in 2025, and then smaller portions of that will happen through 2029. But at the end of the day, $155 utility bill this year is only gonna be $200 in 2029. So not a huge difference on that monthly payment. Okay, now con number 3 is really only gonna affect you if you typically drive west in the evening. So if you're gonna live in the Hudson Oaks area and you are gonna be like commuting to Weatherford or going out in Weatherford for the evening, and it's that I-20 gets very congested just past Hudson Oaks heading west. So after that 20 splits off to 180 and 20 and you keep going, for some reason the highway just really bogs down. And honestly, it's probably just because the large, 20 is an enormous highway. There's like 4 to 5 lanes that run through most of the DFW Metroplex. But when you get out this far, it goes all the way down to 2 lanes. And there's some level of just like everything's cramming in. And so normally it only lasts for a couple of miles, a couple of exits. So typically around the Santa Fe exit, maybe a little bit past that, traffic starts to flow a little more freely. But frequently, if I have to go that direction, there's no accidents, there's no fender benders, there's no real reason that the traffic should get super slow, but it does. And I think it's just that much traffic getting crammed down into 2 lanes. So eventually, I'm sure they will expand that. But if you are gonna be driving west in the evenings, it really does get bogged down just west of Hudson Oaks. Okay, now this one might sound kind of goofy, but con number 4 is that Hudson Oaks has an overpopulation of deer. It actually has gotten so bad, even in 2014, they made a city ordinance with a fine punishable of up to $500 if you were feeding deer on your property in the city. And so on one hand, you're like, well, what's the big deal? That sounds like a pro, like I'd love to see deer running through my neighborhood. And you do, it is really nice when you see a bunch of deer, in the neighborhoods, laying in the yards, walking, through people's front yards and down, along the green spaces. That's really nice and it's pretty and it's fun. My kids love seeing it. But with an overpopulation of deer, it can be dangerous. Like if they're crossing the highway, they don't always make rational decisions, right? They're animals. So you may be driving and they're on the side of the road and they get spooked and they jump into the road. So it's not uncommon to see, maybe a deer on the side of the road that's been hit, unfortunately. And honestly, like you think, well, how bad can this be, Jared? So I actually have a client who lives just on the other side of HEB. And one day I was early to the appointment, early to his house. And so I drove the neighborhood just to, kind of check it all out, see what was out there. I personally saw and counted over 100 deer in a single neighborhood in the afternoon. And this was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So okay, there's a little bit of evidence to the fact that there might be too many deer here. Now, if you're able to hunt it and you're a hunter, cool. But it's really not awesome for the driving conditions on the road. While there is a nice aspect to being able to see all of these deer, there is a negative in the fact that you do need to be cautious when you drive around, certainly at night, early in the mornings. Honestly, with our 3rd child, and we don't live in Hudson Oaks, we live close by. With our 3rd child, we were headed to the hospital late at night in the dark and a deer jumped in front of our car. We were fine, we didn't hit it. But you do need to be, cautious when you're driving down, certainly in back highway roads, country roads, but particularly in Hudson Oaks, you're gonna wanna be careful driving around because there is a large population of deer. And my client that I mentioned, his neighborhood specifically, he said 100% he knows neighbors are feeding the deer. I actually saw one neighbor sitting in his garage and across his driveway, there were so many deer, I couldn't count all of them because they just kind of blended in, and that guy was definitely feeding them. So, that's something to think about. I mean, for the most part, I like it. For the most part, I like being able to see deer. My kids like it. There is a negative to it, and that is you do need to be cautious when you're driving around, certainly in the dark. Well, that's a wrap for the top 4 pros and cons of Hudson Oaks. If I missed anything, didn't explain it thoroughly, or you have additional questions, put those in the comment section And remember, whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. Feel free to reach out however you are most comfortable. I'm looking forward to helping you make a smooth move to the Aledo area.